Lawyer Jiang, the food chain and industrial chain of petitioning. I have long wanted to write an article about the petition industry because my case involves petitioners and petition interceptors, and I have learned some inside stories about petitioning. My client is also a petitioner, but the situation was not provided by her, but introduced by her colleagues. People in the same industry are more savvy, otherwise they would not be so experienced. In the past few years, one of my legal advisory units had an enforcement case after litigation in another province, but it was delayed for a long time because the other party's business conditions were declining. It was during the 2 sessions, and the execution judge of the case from that court came to Beijing to intercept petitioners. I had the opportunity to talk and also learn some inside stories of petitioning. It was these inside stories that made me want to write an article about the petition industry, but I felt that the information was still limited, so I failed to write it. Yesterday, I read the news interceptors killed by petitioners earned 200 yuan for escorting the dead, and I couldn't help but express my feelings. Petition food chain. The so-called food chain is that in the petition relationship, one party benefits from the other party. 1. The food chain between the people who intercept petitioners and petitioners. Every time during the 2 sessions and the Party Congress, National Day, July 1st and other major politically significant holidays, a large number of petitioners gather in the capital Beijing. They believe that petitioning on these important days will put more pressure on the local judicial organs and government departments that created unjust cases for them, in order to solve the problem faster. In fact, this does bring pressure to the local areas. In line with this, local departments have sent a large number of personnel during this period, with the public security to the public security, the court to the court, and the government departments to the departments. I learned from the interception judges that they would stroll around the Supreme Court, and when they saw local people, determined by their accents, petitioning, they would go over to chat with them, and send them back to their hometowns after confirmation. Those who successfully intercepted petitioners will be rewarded for meritorious service, which is capital for future promotions. Previously, he had a colleague who won the second-class merit, and this year it was finally his turn. 2. The relationship between the interviewee and the food chain of the local reported organization. Some interviewers nominally accept the reports, accusations, and appeals from the complainants, but they do not register them in the back of the book. Instead, they sell them to the reported units, commonly known as buying tickets. The price is determined according to the size of the problem. In fact, it is equivalent to suppressing the matter. 3. The food chain of stability maintenance personnel and petitioners. It is understood that a considerable amount of stability maintenance funds are allocated to each frequent petitioner, and some say 60,000 to 70,000 yuan. It is impossible to confirm whether the number is accurate, but there is definitely an allocation. These expenses include but are not limited to: 1. Expenses for stability maintenance personnel. 2. Bribing the objects of stability maintenance, only a few people, most of which do not really solve the problems of the petitioners, but cover up illegal acts. Only a few complainers who are involved in lawsuits for financial interests take the money to settle the matter. This can also be said to pay for illegal acts. 3. Arrange food and accommodation for stability maintenance objects during the 2 sessions, and some even arrange for stability maintenance objects to travel to famous attractions and stay in high-end hotels. In short, there is only one purpose: to avoid causing trouble for local and central governments during the 2 sessions and important holidays. The industry chain of petition. 1. Renting a place to temporarily guard petitioners. Such as Jiang in Fengtai, Nankajiazhuang village in Baikijia town, Changping, Majialu in Fengtai, Hengjizi village in Chaoyang district, etc. The media and the people figuratively call these places where petitioners are illegally detained black prisons. 2. Hiring a security company to guard petitioners. The extortion case of Yentingzhong, which the author represented in the appeal, was because Yentingzhong, in order to rescue his wife who was detained in Lingshan village, Baikijia town, Changping district, and rescued dozens of petitioners who were also detained, jointly reported the black prison with a woman surnamed Zhou. he reported local government officials over a dispute related to the contracting of a brick factory and faced retaliation, resulting in a civil dispute being treated as extortion, for which he was sentenced. 3. Hired personnel to forcibly escort petitioners. In the previous report of petitioners killing interceptors, the one who was killed was a petitioner escort hired by local stability maintenance personnel. There are more cases of petitioners killing interceptors. Petitions have become a breeding ground for illegal activities. Most of the above-mentioned food chains and industrial chains are illegal activities. Since petitioning is a right granted to citizens, intercepting petitions restricting citizens' rights is illegal, which has actually seriously violated citizens' personal freedom and even involved illegal detention. And all of this is done under the leadership of local governments or government departments. Yesterday, today and tomorrow of petitioning. Where should the petition system go? Yesterday, the main destination of petitioning legislation is to accept people's opinions, suggestions and requests to the government. The earliest petitioning regulations were the petitioning regulations of the State Council in 1995, which were revised and reissued in 2005. Earlier, there was the interim regulations on petitioning work of party and government organs, draft, in 1982, but I have not studied whether it has been implemented. Article 2 of the 1995 regulations on letters and visits stipulates, the so-called letters and visits in these regulations refer to the activities that citizens, legal persons and other organizations use letters, telephone calls, visits, etc. to reflect situations, put forward opinions, suggestions and requests to the people's governments at all levels and departments under the people's governments at or above the county level, hereinafter referred to as administrative organs at all levels, and should be handled by the relevant administrative organs in accordance with the law. It can be seen that the regulations on letters and visits are mainly to implement the constitutional rights of citizens to criticize and make suggestions to state organs and their staff. See Article 41 of the Constitution for details. Today, letters and visits have evolved into administrative procedures for citizens to appeal, accuse and report. Article 2 of the 2005 regulations on letters and visits stipulates, the so-called letters and visits in these regulations refer to the activities that citizens, legal persons or other organizations use letters, emails, faxes, telephone calls, visits, etc. to reflect situations, put forward suggestions, opinions or complaints to the people's governments at all levels and departments under the people's governments at or above the county level, and should be handled by the relevant administrative organs in accordance with the law. Compared with the 1995 regulations on letters and visits, we found that the definition of letters and visits has added complaint requests. If reflecting the situation, making suggestions and opinions is a public matter, then complaint request is completely a private matter. The function of the former has been completely lost, while the function of the latter is increasingly strengthened. Many government departments have petitions, and there are petition agencies within the judicial organs. Petitions have made some disputes that should have been resolved by judicial procedures administrative, but what is the actual proportion of problems solved through petitions? Tomorrow, where is the petition system going? Petitions only have the functions of complaints and accusations, but what is the actual proportion of problems solved through petitions? The author does not have statistical figures, but it feels very small, but the army of petitioners is growing stronger and stronger. On the one hand, this is caused by social injustice and judicial injustice caused by corruption, and on the other hand, petitions have formed an industrial chain and food chain. The existence of petitions has benefited some people, which in turn will produce more corruption and unfairness. Where should the petition system go?